Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Patreon-sponsored review time again, but hey, for the first time in a few weeks, it's a comic! Based on a video game. That I've never played. Yeah, unlike Pokemon, where I can make critiques and jokes about stupid minutia in it, I have one piece of history with Tomb Raider. My brother and I played the first one back when we were kids in the 90s on PC, and I wasn't very good at it. Like, I distinctly remember encountering a dinosaur, and that's pretty much it. Naturally, like any popular franchise, it had a number of comic tie-ins, in this case Top Cow in the early 2000s, creating an ongoing, several miniseries and one-shots, including crossovers with Witchblade and the Darkness. Dark Horse has held the license since 2014 and did an ongoing series based on the reboot from 2013. Like I said, I had no real connection to this franchise one way or another, so please be a little forgiving when I question something that's been answered in the games, or the rest of the comics, since the patron wanted this particular storyline covered. So let's dig into Tomb Raider Volume 3, Queen of Serpents, and see if we can just dive into the action. And hopefully encounter a dinosaur. Reading from a trade, plus 6 issues, so no covers. We open in the British Museum in London. After closing. Secluded. Almost. Ugh, don't be that person who's there after closing, taking time away from the staff to clean up and go home. It's just rude. Lara Croft is parkouring through the museum, noting in her narrative captions that security is letting her do this for some reason. And she's making her way into her favorite gallery. Hi, Amenhotep. Evening, Amenephis. Of course, Lara Croft would be taking on the greatest evil we have ever known! Ancient Egypt! Not sure why the hell she's doing this, but she does think for a moment that someone is following her, though she chalks it up to her imagination. Although the audience can clearly see someone hiding from her in a hoodie. Elsewhere in London, we meet this beefy guy named Jonah dealing with his snooty chef boss. He tastes the sauce the guy is making and calls it muck. It's not finished yet. What did you say? It's not finished yet, chef. What did you say? I mean, I'll start again, chef. No, seriously, I cannot hear you. I think something's wrong with my hearing aid. Like, why does he have to start again? You're tasting before it's done. Of course it's not gonna taste good. You just took a soup ladle full of half-made ingredients. If I took a bite out of something that hadn't finished cooking yet, of course it wouldn't taste good. And like last week, we once again need Gordon Ramsay in here.
You cook like a fucking baby.
Jonah takes out the garbage where another hoodie stalker is nearby while he mumbles to himself. I know how to make sauce. I know how to make 100 sauces. I am Mr. Sauce. It was at that moment that Jonah discovered his superhero identity. Yet another friend of Lara's is stalked by a hoodied person as she buys some cupcakes, though in her case, she does notice them. After failing to contact Lara, who's in the middle of running past 2 statues that look like penises, Jonah finally notices his stalker, who vanishes Batman style. And the woman manages to use her cupcakes on the guy's face to knock him down. He still manages to escape. Yeah, you'd better run! I have more cupcakes, you know! I'm pretty sure I've seen that same threat in a My Little Pony comic before. Lara's stalker somehow gets ahead of her, but then runs past her and makes his escape, bumping into Cupcake Woman, real name Sam, on her way out. Despite their best efforts at pursuing him, he manages to get away when he tosses the most deadly of weapons back at them, a TV remote! That monster! How will they set their DVR to record stuff now? Later, the two discuss what happened in a back room, security having told them that there was no sign of him breaking in, so he must have come in when the museum was open and then hid. In a lab room, they see written on a whiteboard, "Play me, Lara Croft." I keep hitting play on the whiteboard, but nothing's happening. They find a tape and play it, and not being familiar with these games, did they take place in the 90s? Because it seems weird that this museum just has an old CRT TV and VCR set up in their back room. Or that whoever's behind this decided to use a VHS tape for this if it's supposed to be contemporary. On the tape is someone who looks like Grim, a character from the first reboot game who was killed. So naturally our heroes are a little confused by this. Well, you guys, this is a comic book. You just kind of have to get used to characters dying and then getting resurrected. A woman with a bandana appears on screen and tells Lara that her forces have him as a hostage and demand $5 million for his safe return. Otherwise, you will see him in pieces. Naturally, the ransom price will go down as we remove more of him in order to keep it fair. Lara says that she never saw Grim's dead body, so it is possible that he's alive. As such, they head over to their friend Kaz's place where they examine the tape, and the account they want the money wired to. It's Mexican, and they spot a tattoo that Sam says was on her stalker. It belongs to a bandit group known as Las Serpientes que Caminan, the snakes who walk, but want to dance. The snakes operate out of the Lakandan jungle and follow a woman named the Serpent Queen. Jonah arrives with a package left for him by his stalker, Grim's bloody hat, providing some further evidence that he's indeed the one they have. Lara wants to just pay the ransom, but naturally they don't have $5 million. She tries to take control of her estate so she can get the money, but her uncle is the executor and he sees her adventurous lifestyle as mentally unsound, so refuses to hand over what's rightfully hers until she seeks professional help for it. She's kind of inclined to agree as she fantasizes about pushing him out a window. I don't know, everything about this guy's demeanor and stance in the artwork makes him out to be a colossal douchebag. Even his expression in the fantasy makes him look like he's thinking, "Ugh, pushed out a window? How uncivilized." Later, Sam suggests going to the authorities, but Lara shoots down the idea because the entire situation from the game sounds a bit ludicrous. That they were shipwrecked on an island full of mad cultists worshipping an immortal Sun Queen, and that their dead friend is being held captive by bandits. It is a little ridiculous, but her uncle knows about what happened on that journey, and that seems to imply the expedition itself was public knowledge. And if the bandits are who they say they are, given the bank account number and the kidnapping, the authorities would be inclined to believe that part. Mind you, a better reason not to is brought up by Lara, but for a different reason. Namely, that these people already know who she and her friends are and are stalking them, meaning they'd likely know if they went to the authorities and then just murdered Grim anyway, since his value as a hostage would be compromised. Instead, Sam suggests they go on a rescue mission, heading to the jungle in Mexico on the pretense of hunting chupacabras. Okay, it's not a dinosaur, but I would still be very happy if this story featured a chupacabra. Lara has a nightmare where she ends up being possessed by Himiko, the aforementioned immortal Sun Queen from the game, before being woken up by Sam, and her plan to keep the stalkers from knowing they're gone. Actors from her acting class that will stand in for them while they're gone. It's a good plan, and with some hair coloring and contact lenses, the stand-ins are a pretty good match for them, and should hopefully fool their opponents. After giving the stalkers the slip so they can swap with their doubles, Lara, Sam, Jonah, and Kaz are on their way to the jungle. Their guide is also the captain of the boat they're chartering for the trip, named Art. "Okay, I have one rule. What I say goes, okay? Now get in these clown suits and start swapping the decks." Later, a storm starts moving in and everyone heads below deck. Except for Sam, who snaps at Lara for no reason and walks outside and jumps into the water for no discernible reason. They rescue her as she just floats in the water making a T-pose, because this is a video game tie-in after all, before a bull shark can come in and get her. Man, that shark was ready for this. I'm betting it was on the bandits' payroll. Art also comes out to help rescue her, but he's injured by the shark. Sam then manages to deal with the shark by jumping on its back and stabbing it in the eye! And geez, I know we joke on the internet about sharks being smooth, but yeah, seems like she should have more injuries to her skin doing this. But I think we can forgive that a bit because that was just awesome! Art's injury is serious enough that they have to bring him back to the mainland for medical attention, much to their chagrin because they can't afford another boat. However, since they saved his life, Art lets them take the boat, making them promise to bring it back in one piece. I'm sure it'll be fine. I mean, that boat does have 2 days to retirement. Sometime later, Lara and her crew are traveling down a jungle river and hear the story of a man whose goats were supposedly slaughtered by a chupacabra. Though in the flashback, it looks quite a bit different. Of course! That's how chupacabras have remained hidden for so long! They're secretly werewolves! A local woman talks to Lara privately about her missing daughter, Mari, thinking a chupacabra might be responsible for her disappearance, but also mentions her attempts to get in touch with the bandits for help since the local authorities don't care. After learning where the bandits operate, Lara tells her they'll keep an eye out for the girl. More importantly, a local woman sees Sam. Or rather sees something else about her and demands to know who she is, the disturbance causing her to faint. They write it off as her having a bad reaction to the herbs she was using for a ritual, but then she snaps at the others, in particular at Lara, claiming that no one else gets to be the hero but her. Unfortunately, Lara seems to follow through on that claim, since later that night she decides to head out on her own to follow up on the lead on the bandits, not wanting to risk the others. Kaz gives her some help, but says she can only cover for her for 24 hours before the others go after her. And so Lara heads out deeper into the jungle, eventually coming across some Mayan ruins after several hours. And after discovering a strange scarab inside of it, Lara Croft becomes the new 52 Blue Beetle. She finds Mari inside of a hole that she'd fallen into, having survived in it for several days thanks to some water in a cave and some moss she found. After the branch Lara tied a rope to breaks, she falls in and is just as trapped, collapsing a good chunk of the hole and forcing the two into the cave. Locating the fresh water in the cave, Lara thinks it might lead to a way out, so the two follow it for a while, until they come across an alligator, which, according to the brief research I did, shouldn't really be in this area. It should be a crocodile, but I guess the crocodiles are busy being attacked by Batman and xenomorphs right now. In any case, the two are able to fend off the alligator and make their way out of the cave, discovering a tree full of dolls in it. Mari explains that when people lose a child, they come here to ask the spirits to bless them in the afterlife. She thinks her mother believes her dead, as evidenced by one of her dolls that's been left in the tree. I think she was asking the spirits for help finding you. Unfortunately, it turns out the spirits are only interested in Beanie Babies. The two take a rest under the tree, but it seems one of the dolls is actually a spy camera for the Serpent Queen, who spots Lara. So how often does the doll cam aimed at that tree prove useful to the bandits? After Lara has another nightmare, this one of the Loch Ness Monster attacking her and Grim, she awakens and tells Mari about Grim. Showing her a photograph, Mari says she's seen him in a camp controlled by the bandits, being dragged away somewhere. She had been too scared to ask for their help when she was lost in the jungle. Lara manages to bring Mari back to her village and gets a crudely drawn map from her back to the bandit camp. After following it, with some wordplay and clever perspective, she arrives at the camp but is quickly captured, the bandits expecting her. She's brought to the queen herself, who's less regal and more older lady in combat fatigues. She explains that she actually knew Lara's father, having met him after he used his money to stop some deforestation that she had been protesting. In exchange, she was a guide to some Mayan ruins and the two had a brief romance, him even mentioning the young Lara and showing her picture. But then he left and never came back. Nowadays, she's stopped being an optimist and is now just more interested in the money. Unfortunately, she's now keenly aware that Lara doesn't have access to her family fortune. As such, her new plan is to lure Sam in. Her family is wealthy, and while she couldn't secure the funds for Grim's release, her family might be more keen to help if she was a hostage. At this rate, the Serpent Queen is just gonna keep kidnapping people down the line until someone can afford to pay the ransom. She's in too deep at this point. They throw her in the same cell as Grim, who reveals that he's not Grim. In reality, he's Grim's identical twin brother, Cuddy, which somehow still feels less plausible than the dinosaurs in this franchise. The two had a falling out when their mother got sick, with Grim going off on an adventure to avoid facing that, while Cuddy was the more sensible one and didn't like the adventuring lifestyle. However, when he heard about Grim's death, he took care of Grim's boat and cats and decided to embark on a trip of his own, and ended up getting captured by the bandits. The twin thing, combined with Grim's old paperwork on the boat, led them to the conclusion that he was Grim, which is the only thing keeping him alive. The hut they're being kept in has a tunnel to let snakes in, because the Serpent Queen needs to stay on brand, and Lara manages to bust down one of its bars and get hold of a torch in it to allow them to crawl through it. Cuddy's a little reluctant the entire way through due to the lack of bravery his brother had, but fortunately Lara talks him through it. She also overhears some plot exposition of some of the bandits talking about where her friends are currently located. They make their way along the river until they locate Cuddy's boat and knock out a guard. However, a second guard spots them down below and holds them at gunpoint until he hears something in a closet. The guard opens it, and is attacked by Grimm's cats. Okay, well now I want a Tomb Raider sequel where you play as an adventurous cat. The distraction allows Lara to send the guard running, electing not to shoot him because she refuses to kill a fleeing unarmed man. As they proceed down the river and stop just short of a bend because of a bad feeling Lara has, Cuddy thanks her for not leaving him behind when she found out he wasn't Grimm. She says she'd never do something like that. Well, you got someone to do your taxes for you for the rest of your life. Just do what I do and hire a clown to do it. They find the rest of Lara's friends captured, the bandits wanting to know where Lara and Cuddy are and even threaten Sam with a machete. I guess the Serpent Queen neglected to mention, oh hey, don't kill the one who's our meal ticket, dumbasses. The gun they took from the guard is out of bullets, and they need a distraction. Cuddy, inspired by the movie The African Queen, elects to set their boat on fire and drive it down the river at the bandits' boat. It succeeds, allowing Lara to free the others, although Sam attacks some of the remaining bandits and kills one with a machete instead of just running. She drops it, not understanding what she just did, and the group makes their escape back on their borrowed boat. Despite the group making their escape, the Serpent Queen admits that she's actually quite impressed with Lara during all this. Which, you know, is great and all, aside from all your men and equipment that have been lost on this undertaking that has yielded no money whatsoever. I don't think it's gonna go over well with your men when you say, yeah, she killed Juan, but damn it, she's so cool! Back in the boat, Sam hasn't moved from her spot to even wash the blood off of her. That is non-existent on the next page. And we see in a mirror that she is being possessed by Himiko, that immortal queen person from the first game that I was talking about before, which explains her behavior throughout the story. A few weeks later, in a rather unexpectedly realistic turn, Lara has been fired from the museum since she's been gone for several weeks, but she did manage to get in an accounting job for Cuddy there. However, we soon see that she's clearly traumatized by these events, hallucinating a gunman attacking kids, when really it's just a dad taking a photo of his kids. She thinks about Sam's words from the boat about needing to be the hero, not helped by almost attacking 3 random guys that she thought were following her, when in reality they were just looking for a pub. To be fair though, they were about to walk into a really crappy pub, so she would have been saving them there. She sees Sam again, who's just as terse as before, hoping to talk to her about the fact that she killed someone, but Sam just berates her and walks off. Later, Jonah and Kaz come over to join in some blanket cave friendship bonding and talk about whether the Queen of Serpents was going to come after them. But there's been no sign of any activity. She's probably just cutting her losses at this point. We get some good character development, talking about Lara's issues, her need to talk to people about this stuff, but not knowing who to trust or who would even believe the weird crap she's been through. This is all really good stuff, well-written and introspective material. Unfortunately, it doesn't really make for good riffing, so boner, I guess. Lara gets a phone call that Sam has been arrested for assault. The next day, they learn she just randomly attacked someone asking for directions, and when Lara speaks to her, she gets the idea that she's being possessed by Himiko, as she says, "We're fine." She manages to get through to Sam for a moment, but then Himiko takes over and walks off. And so our comic ends with Lara deciding not to leave, and instead start writing about her experiences, unbelievable as they may sound to people, setting up for the game Rise of the Tomb Raider, while she creepily stares at the reader. Yeah! Stop staring at me like that, Lara! I'll play the damn game! This comic is really good. Yeah, it's honestly great stuff. The adventure is exciting, and the constant motion keeps things from getting boring. Lara and her friends are competent, capable, and the story never leaves you bored. For 6 issues, it moves at a pretty brisk pace, and I skipped over a lot of the narration and character introspection throughout. Hell, it's pretty impressive that the last issue of the storyline to a tie-in to an action video game spends so much time on just character development and questioning the psyche of our hero and what that means for her. It's helped that the writer, Rihanna Pratchett, aka Terry Pratchett's daughter, was also a writer in both the 2013 Tomb Raider and Rise of the Tomb Raider, so she understands Lara and her friends completely. Honestly, I feel like the only downside of the book is that for something called Queen of Serpents, she isn't actually that important to the story. She's there, she's an antagonist, but only in the broad sense that she's leading the bad guys. There's no final confrontation between Lara and her, and they set her up as so dangerous given all she knew about Lara and her friends. But that element just fizzles out because of the mad respect she has for her, which feels a little underdeveloped since she's only in 2 scenes in the entire 6 issues. Maybe a better subtitle for this would have been The Den of Serpents or something. Still, it's a great story as part of an ongoing, and hey, even me, someone barely familiar with this franchise, was able to read and understand it without knowing a lot about it. Good stuff. Next time, we've got one more Patreon-sponsored review as we take a look at the first issue of an indie miniseries, Little Victory Chimera. Man, between the attack on Sam and now Lara's breakdown, is no one ever gonna get to eat cupcakes from that shop?